Hello and welcome to Polytoots. In the last video we were doing the retopo and we're moving on now to the unwrap. And we didn't do all of the teeth, and I said before that I would just like clone the whole thing and that would kind of save us some time, and I would probably record it off screen, but I encountered a bit of a problem in that we've marked our seams here, but if I were to just, in fact I select this button just to select all the faces, and if I were to clone this, and I don't need to actually put it in place because you'll see what's wrong, so I'll just apply that, say no. We don't have our seams, like the seams aren't carried across, so you see here in the UV preview, not quite the same. But I have found a little workaround, so let me just unhide all of these. Basically, if you actually perform an unwrap on this mesh, then when you clone it, it will retain the seams. It will also keep the unwrap as well, which is pretty handy. The only problem with that is we don't really want to perform an unwrap now because we have, you know, everything else, which it would be a bit of a mess. So what I'm going to do, just as a little sort of temporary solution, I'm going to select all of these faces of my tooth, and I'm going to create a new UV set. So I'll just call this tooth, and then where it says move selected, because I have all the faces selected, I'll stick that into my tooth layer, and then I actually have to change my channel to the actual tooth. So now we're in a completely separate UV channel to all of the others. So if I were to perform an unwrap, it will only apply it to my tooth. So just go to mark seams and then hit the unwrap, and those are there. And so from this point, just as a test, let's select all the faces again, hit clone, and then apply. And so now you can see, even if we're going to mark seams, it's retained the seams. It even keeps the unwrap. So it's actually in this unwrap here, this is both of the teeth, like the front and the back, are kind of layered onto one, well, two, so the front, yeah, you know what I mean. Just wanted to demonstrate that real quick because I am now going to stop recording and just basically do all of the teeth like this. So I'm just going to select it and put them all along here. I'm only going to do one side, and then I'll use symmetry to basically flip them back over to the other. So yeah, I will see you when that's all done. Okay, so once all of those have been cloned into place, you're going to be left with a lot of layers. So it's just a case of selecting all of the faces in one, going up to that top layer, and then moving the selected faces into that current layer, and then getting rid of the layer that you've just copied it from. So a bit of a tedious process. So I'll just skip through this. Okay, and then once all of your teeth are in that one layer, you can go ahead and enable symmetry. Not on that plane though. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, so make sure that you're on the right layer for it. And then we might need to invert the mirror. I always forget. But we'll just hit this make symmetrical copy button. And there we go. Boom. And the nice thing about this is already now completely unwrapped. Like they're in these two areas. But one thing we can actually do, just to make lives a little bit easier, I did say before how we could actually map back to the front, you know, just to save on that tiny amount of texture space. It's really not needed, but what you can do is if you select all of these shells, and you might want to do that with one of these other selection types by pressing the E key. If you select all of those, just hit Control C to copy, and then you don't need to select all of these, you can just select one and press Control V to paste, and that is now every single tooth, the front and the back, all mapped to this one UV. So pretty cool. I have just noticed I need to do a little bit of a tweak here, so I'll just do that now. Okay, so that is the teeth taken care of, and what I will actually do is I'll just rename that to teeth. So yeah, let's move on. And let's do other stuff. So with the hat, if I remember correctly, we did use some kind of symmetry for here. I guess it was that one. So yeah, we might as well kind of make use of that. I mean, you can uniquely unwrap these things if you want. I'm probably not going to bother. So with the mark seams, if you just hold shift, it'll just create a loop all the way through. And I'll just do something like this. All of these can probably just be their own. So let me have the side and the inside. And then just going to ease up. Could either sort of do something like this, so it creates quite a kind of a nice shape, which I might keep, but I'll just undo that. Or you can just maybe add in a couple of seams here. Might have to go down to something like there. Either one's fine, whichever one you prefer. So now we have these two, and because the symmetry was on it, it's mapped at both sides. So that's done, and now we'll do the pipe. And if you remember, I think the pipe again had its sort of local symmetry. So again, let's just run a seam all the way through it. And looks like there's something strange going on here. Well, that's maybe just my imagination. There is a face there, right? It's not just my imagination. Oh, I need to get the radius down just a touch. So we'll separate this, but we'll keep just one edge of it open, just so it's connected on the unwrap sheet. I mean, you don't have to do that. It's kind of up to you. Actually, yeah, no, I will split those as well, so I'll keep those open as well. And that's probably okay. It's a very small little prop, so a little bit of sort of squishing or stretching, not going to be a huge deal at all. So pipe, done. Now for the tie. So let's enable symmetry. I mean, we could give all of this symmetry. In fact, I think I might, but the other thing I was thinking is you could sort of just chop off like these two bits. So you have the left side here and the right side, and they could be symmetrical, and then you could keep this piece unique if you wanted to add on, like, I don't know, some sort of logo or icon, embroidery typey thing, I don't know. In fact, just for the sake of this tutorial, I will actually keep this piece unique, but obviously we need to tidy it up a bit. So I'm just gonna, didn't want that many seams. I'm gonna have to sort of cut around quite a bit of it. So let's go from here to here. If you insert your own seam somewhere, like, so for example, let me just control and click on that. So if I were to run a whole loop by holding shift, you see it kind of keeps going up. And similar here, if I were to undo these, if I were to hold shift, it just, you know, the whole loop will kind of continue as if it's uninterrupted. But if you create your own seams and then hold shift, it will stop at those seams. So it's pretty handy. So now the eyes, which really don't need much at all, and because this was an imported model, they kind of have their own UVs. They're just the wrong UVs. So I just got to clear seams, which didn't really seem to work. I hope that didn't clear the seams of. No, that's fine. You know what it is? Probably because we're in the tooth layer anyway. So we're able to unwrap things just fine, but we probably do want to be in the. Yeah, so there we go. And now I should go back and make sure that my teeth haven't just been wiped. No, okay, that seems fine. So I guess the clear seams only applies to the layer you're on, which is pretty handy to know. Otherwise we would have just lost all of our teeth. But yeah, anyway, eyes, not super important. Let's just add in a couple of seams here. Yeah, something like that. In fact, you may even, if you wanted to, depending on like how much sort of eye roll or whatever your character had, to save a bit of sort of space, you could actually just get rid of some of these faces. Because if we find our body. So we know that we can see, you know, that amount, and it might move a bit, but it probably isn't going to move too much. So let's just get rid of some of these. We could probably get rid of more, but that'll do. Let's hide the body again. Go back to seams. Yeah, that's fine. No problems with that. So eyes done. Laces. Okay. If you press, I think it's Shift and A, it will auto zoom down to whatever is visible. Pretty handy. With these, I guess give them all the exact same seams, because we'll probably overlay these UVs as well when we come to the unwrap. So long as they all have the same, should be fine. Now for these ones, it's a different story because they don't share the same shape. So for these ones, it's just seam along there, seam along there. And that'll do. Did I have symmetry on? I did, okay. Because I'm still on the eyes layer, shouldn't have done that, but there we go. Okay, so now for the shoes. Yeah, I do enjoy unwrapping in 3D Coat. Like it's really quick. It's probably, actually I'm gonna undo that seam for now. So we'll separate out the bottom. Probably want to separate this chunk out. And I might as well actually run that up to the top. So it's just that. And now I wonder actually if we could just put one seam in the back. Yeah, that's completely fine. I think there's minimal amounts of sort of stretching and skewing. Yeah, that is completely a-okay. One thing I kind of sometimes like to do, it's not essential, is I will kind of unhide one of these seams where possible. I say unhide, I mean uncheck, just so that like important elements of an unwrapped shell, like a UV shell, kind of will stay together on the actual UV sheet. I mean, this is just a personal thing. You don't have to do it, but obviously if you were to do it, you make sure that it's in an area where it isn't going to overlap with any other UVs, because like here for example, if you see we're getting a little bit of sort of overlap if you look in the UV preview area. So yeah, you don't want that, but I will just keep them separate, but I hope what I said at least kind of makes some sense. But anyway, that's the shoes done. So teeth, hat pipe, everything, and so yeah, now the body. Save the best for last, I guess. And symmetry on. Okay, so first of all, I mean, this is an obvious kind of split area here, but let me just unhide this, make sure we're actually so yeah, either one of these is probably fine, so let's just go with that one. And for the neck, we tried to sort of keep that same loop with the tie, so probably one of these loops. Yeah, so there, and then we'll come up here a bit and then to there. So that's a good place to have that seam, because the tie should hide the vast majority of that. And let's just also take out his mouth, or rather the inside of his mouth. There we go. Yeah, the same, like holding the shift to create a seam. The same rule applies for if you want to reattach a seam. And so I'm holding Control and Shift on this one, but because there's already some handmade seams here, it isn't going to continue that, so it will stop and it will only do that. So pretty handy. For the eye, I'll leave that as it is for now. The fin we will almost certainly need to chop out, because it could create a lot of issues if we keep it attached to the body. And also while we're here, let's just do that. And yeah, so that's mapped the whole thing. Pretty cool. For the arms, let's split the hands first. Here's fine. And then, I mean, what you normally kind of see is somewhere on the shoulder. Maybe here's fine. Although we may do the other ring. So let's see. I'm not sure. Either of those rings seems fine. You usually see the seam of the character's arm come down like this way because it's the one that you kind of rarely see. You know, it's the one that isn't seen the most. So, good place to put that seam. And everything's okay. The only thing I will mention is that for this particular character, it was requested that he would have a tattoo on his arm. And since I'm going to be mirroring a lot of these UVs, what I'm actually going to do to sort of save myself a bit of space is I'll actually disable symmetry, and I will cut out UVs of one of his arms and re-enable symmetry. So we can mirror. In fact, no, didn't need to do that. We can actually keep that seam in. So let's undo that. How much did I just undo? Okay, so yeah. Yeah, so my apologies there. We don't actually need to disable symmetry because all of this we're going to sort out when we're doing the packing of the unwrap. Okay, so this is coming along all right. So the back and the torso are still connected. So one probably easy win there is just probably just to continue this seam down here, or because we already have the seams made up here from the fin, we could just do something like that. So this will be quite a large UV sheet. It's kind of up to you really what your sort of preference might be. So the other option would be just to put a whole seam down here so it actually splits the front and the back. Both are fine, to be honest, but I'm gonna go with what it was before because we already have this kind of seam here anyway. Yeah, so that's done. Let's move on to the legs now then. I will say though, before we actually do this, I want to get the brush here, and I'm going to move some things around. Don't really like what I've done. Just do that. That should be fine, to be honest. I don't see any major problems with that. Yeah, so let's go back to doing the seams. And again, because I do believe all of this is actually completely symmetrical, so it's okay to just straight down the middle. So we have a left and a right. And similar to the arms with the seam underneath, you don't really want to have your leg seam on the outside, so the only other place to put it is on the inside. And just make sure it does actually meet up at the top there. Okay, so now we have that. And again, these are sort of quite large UV shells, or at least they will be. On occasion, I will kind of split them somewhere, you know, wherever it is you want, but I'll just keep it as it is for now. It's probably fine. So see what's left. We have the head and we have the hands, and I think that's it. So for the hands, if you were watching my retopo video, I was pretty sort of adamant about having this middle sort of line running like all the way through. So like this one. And obviously because of these extra bits that we've added in, we can't actually continue the seam. So let me bring my radius down a touch. So it will require a bit of manual tweakage, or rather just manual tapping. So I'm just holding shift anyway, even if it is only just a single click, but then when it isn't, it will actually go all the way through. So yeah, just continue this around. Oh, okay, so that's interesting. It looks like I didn't actually add in those joint polygons onto the thumb. Oh, that's my bad. So let's just fix that right now, actually. Okay, and then just put those seams back in. And the reason I do it this way is back in the days when you couldn't, actually it looks like I made a little bit of a boo-boo there, no biggie though. Back in the days when we didn't have like this automatic peel sort of functionality, it mostly made sense just to map hands like from the top and then from the bottom. And so the way that I've kind of translated that nowadays using like modern technology is just to kind of run a seam all the way through the bottom, and so basically to separate the two out. And looking at the UVs, the top is definitely looking a lot better than the bottom. I don't know why that's looking so kind of squished. Maybe we need to add in a couple of just control points, or maybe even get rid of something. So that's looking a bit better in some areas at least. Yeah, I don't like to separate out too much of this. And the areas where it appears to be bad, I mean that's an okay area for a little bit of sort of texture stretching and whatnot. So yeah, that should be fine. Just keep those separated. So that's everything except for the head. And let's see. So we've got the mouth open, and the way that you would kind of do like a human head, I don't think it will apply to a shark at all, but we'll see, is if I just create some seams here and then just drop one straight down there, although we probably no, let's try this way as it comes up a little bit further, although I don't think it matters too much. We may need to separate the eyes, I'm not sure. I mean, again, this character is symmetrical, so we could just immediately kind of split it and then just add in a few sort of relaxing kind of loops. So I guess not these ones, because if you see, I guess the pressure points are the wrong way around, because it's actually, as I cut into this, it's actually overlapping with itself. But there'll probably be somewhere where we can kind of alleviate. That did a lot, actually. That did a lot. Yeah, but maybe we need to bring in this area a little bit. So I'll just change these seams ever so slightly. And same again for here. So we'll actually run these just an edge ring larger. Should be okay. And I'm not too worried about any sort of squishing and stretching in here either, because again, not a high priority area. But that seems to be nice, and that even as the eye as it is now, there is an agreeable amount, but maybe we could just split it out anyway, although looking at it with and without doesn't really make much of a difference, so I'm just going to leave it where it is. Yeah, okay, so that is, I believe, everything. Did the shoes, eyes, tie, pipe, hat, teeth. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but so we still have the teeth in the other UV channel, and that's fine. I'm going to keep that in there for now. Yeah, so I'm just going to perform an unwrap, and that will immediately let me know if I haven't unwrapped anything, because it will just appear somewhere and be kind of ugly looking. So unwrap. Okay, so that is the whole thing unwrapped there. And I guess these are the eyes, or rather the back of the eyes. Yeah, so those are selected. Probably the laces, I'm guessing. Yeah, it seems to be this lace. So this, it's gone a little bit weird, but I'm not worried about that too much, because we can copy and paste basically all of these lace UVs into the same one. So the idea is you kind of just pick one, copy it, and then paste it into that, and that will actually fix the UVs of the ones that came out weird. But as for why they came out weird, don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. There are some other kind of unwrapping things you can do. Like if I were to select this, you do have some other options down here, which you can try. Sometimes they seem to work, sometimes they don't, but as I said, for me it doesn't really matter too much because I'm just going to basically force the UVs to be the same shape as one of these laces that actually has good UVs. Okay, it looks like one glaringly obvious thing that I forgot is the character is basically completely symmetrical except for this tattoo that will be on one arm and not on the other. So my chest actually can be split as well, so that should be fine. So let's do a re-unwrap. That's fine. And what is this? It looks like the shoe, but I don't think it has anything to do with the shoe. Okay, that's his mouth. Yeah, I do like to kind of just have a look at my unwrap afterwards and try to work out what things are, which will help in a bit, because we're going to try and basically just move some things into each other. But for now, it's okay. I'm going to hide some stuff, like the hat and the pipe. I'm going to keep everything. Let's get rid of the teeth because that's already in a different layer. The tie we might as well hide as well. Basically, I'm going to keep everything visible that I want to actually perform symmetry on. So I'm going to just overlay the UVs, which it will include the arm for now, but we can separate that out later. So I think that's completely fine. And the reason I'm not including the tie and the pipe, for one, the tie, we did say that we would have this area here be unique, so we don't really want to include that. We can fix up the symmetrical parts manually afterwards. And for the pipe, it's because it has local symmetry. Same with the hat, so I'm pretty sure that might go a bit weird. So yeah, this seems fine. Everything as it is now, so we'll just hit this button. And it's only tried to make the visible layers symmetrical, so that seems to have worked quite well. Hello, this is it's me from the future. I told a little bit of a lie just then. I think I was referring to like an old functionality that 3D Coat used to have, because I had problems where I would use the symmetry feature for UVs and it would actually mirror things that I didn't want it to, that were in other layers. So I don't know if I'm just going crazy or not, but now it definitely seems like you only mirror on the layer that you have selected. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Because later on I actually wonder why like my shoes and my eyes haven't been made symmetrical, and the reason is because now it's done per layer rather than what's visible. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I will now hand you back to the guy from the past. 3D Coat has often in the past had some issues with mirroring and overlapping UVs, especially if you see some of my earlier videos. We definitely had some problems with it. One thing I did actually completely forget, the mouth. So it's created its own seams here, which it's made symmetrical even though seams don't exist. And to me, that just seems like something could go wrong. So I'm actually just going to introduce my own seams here, and might as well. I mean, we could just do the unwrap again and then just do the symmetry. It would take like 5 seconds, but I do just want to test out something else. So with the mark seams tool still active, switch to this, so select that. I believe there is just a way to update islands. So now that I've pressed that, hopefully we don't get any issues. So it has a seam there and it has a seam in there. That should be fine. And so the arm we did want to separate it out, so it's not this piece. So it's one of these pieces. I mean, we'll just do that anyway. So yeah, pretty cool. So now let's hide those other layers. Let's get our tie. Now with the tie, remember that this whole piece here is unique. So all we want to do is just grab this piece, Control C to copy, and Control V, and then Control D if you want to deselect. And that's it for the tie. For the pipe, I mean, it is only in 2 bits, so rather than, you know, enabling the local symmetry and using the symmetry button here, we'll just grab one half of it, copy, select the other half, and paste, and that is it. And with the hat, probably the same actually. Yeah, it's only made up of a couple of pieces, so let's see, I can copy paste this and this and this, and I do believe that was it for the hat. Just 1, 2, 3 pieces. 1, 2, and 3. Yep, should be fine. And the teeth are in their own UV channel. So in theory, that should be everything. Everything's kind of overlapped. Yeah, just having a quick look. Everything seems fine. So now we will actually go to pack UV. Okay, so we've given ourselves, you know, like a lot of extra space. Also the eyes, didn't remember that, so copy paste. Oh, and I did also forget the laces. Copy paste. So we did make them symmetrical, so they do, like, you know, this UV here will be the same as this UV here, but we might as well actually come along here and let's just copy those, paste into that, and so I'm just going to pack UV again, although I don't need to, it didn't change too much, but it should be fine. And then lastly, we need to get our teeth, and so let's go into tooth and we'll select all of these, and for now I'm just going to leave them outside of and we'll go back to one of these things actually. So yeah, I've moved that outside of the UV space, and let's select all of them, move selected to default, and then swap back to default. And while we're here, let's delete the unused UV set. So tooth has now disappeared. And what this has done is it's just put our teeth back into the UV channel of everything else. And you will have to just eye this stuff up, but it's pretty easy because the way that 3D Coat works in terms of what it thinks is sort of squished and stretched, it kind of compares like the texel density of one piece to another. Which is why all of these teeth look like they're red, because there are some big teeth and there's some small teeth, and I've just treated them all as one. So immediately 3D Coat is trying to tell me, you know, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but it's not actually wrong. And to be fair, 3D Coat isn't trying to tell me it's wrong, it's trying to tell me that I have a mismatched texel density. But I'm aware of that, and it's very much intentional. But if I just scale this, you see how the other UVs become blue, and if I were to scale it really tiny, they would eventually become red. But essentially you want to just bring this back to somewhere where the other UVs are looking, you know, a bit sort of healthy, you know, something like that, whatever. But it is entirely up to you, because for example, if I were to actually scale this tooth up like here, and so all of the others, it's saying, you know, they're sort of squished or something, that they're sort of small, but by comparison it doesn't actually change anything for the end result. You know, you still get the same amount of pixels to paint here. The only difference is you've given yourself quite a lot of space to paint this tooth. So, I mean, that's fine, you know, do whatever it is you need to do. Yeah, okay, so we'll leave that as that. And to be fair, that is the whole unwrapping done. And this video is kind of ticking on a bit, so we'll sort out the baking in the next part, which I will upload very, very soon, possibly the same day. So that wraps it up for this. That is the character unwrapped. I don't think I've forgotten anything, so thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next part.